Hello and welcome to this 55th lecture on role of India. So, role of India as far as the global climate governance is concerned. To discuss this, we are going through to cover through these concepts. So, 7 things have been mentioned here, have been listed. First, we will see how importantly India is, or how aggressively India is pursuing or participating in this climate governance negotiations, and how it is also back at home preparing to adapt and mitigate with respect to this climate change. So, what are the climate change actions, negotiations, and other things are the total story around India's contribution as far as the global climate governance is concerned. So, India's key contributions at COP28. We will also discuss about the challenges in India's transition to a low carbon economy. We will discuss about domestic climate policies and commitments. Then we will discuss about India's renewable energy initiatives. So, starting from low carbon economy, the policy commitments, and also our initiatives as far as the renewable energy is concerned, and also India's strategic pathways for achieving the low carbon transition. And then also in the last class, on the 54th lecture, we discussed in detail with respect to the Paris Agreement and the Glasgow. So, we will see here also the Paris Agreement credit mechanism and India's participation, and also we will discuss about NAPAC, that means National Action Plan on Climate Change, that means NAPCC 2008. So, in this as far as the India's key contributions at COP28 is concerned, we see India positioned itself as a leader advocating clean energy growth, climate justice and resilience, while it is also balancing all other development priorities. So, talking here with respect to 3 important things as far as COP28 is concerned. So, India discussed about India's renewable energy leadership is well commended. The target of achieving 500 gigawatts of energy from non-fossil capacity by 2030 is in way. So, second is scaling solar via International Solar Alliance. So, International Solar Alliance, India has been the chairman of the Solar Alliance, and lot of renewable energy is being trapped using through this solar solar cells. Then the advancing green hydrogen for industrial decarbonization. So, green hydrogen is another important renewable energy sources. If we tap it, it is clean, it is green, and that will help in decarbonize our industry sector. Coming to the climate finance and equity. So, as far as India is concerned, it urged all the developed nations to deliver 100 billion per year commitment. So, whatever the commitment has been mentioned, that per year we need 100 billion US dollar. So, India requested, urged all the developed nations to comply to this. So, this is a very important and active, we would say, aggressive participation as far as India as a nation is concerned. Strong push for loss and damage fund. So, India has been pushing very strongly as far as the contribution to the loss and damage fund is concerned. And also India has been emphasizing on climate justice and equity as far as the CBDR principle. So, with that, the capable countries should contribute more, and the developing or underdeveloped countries, including island nations, may not contribute that much in comparison to the developed countries. Then coming to the adaptation and resilience focus. It called for greater investment in climate resilient infrastructure, highlighted NAFCC National Action Plan in terms of supporting the adaptation initiatives. So, India's climate to say is going through lot of adverse effects, like it is affecting our agriculture sector, vegetation sector, vulnerable communities, urban settlements and extreme events. Some possible strategies like nature based solutions, advanced modeling techniques that provides lot of information in advance, policy alignment and also urban planning. So, the various challenges. In terms of the challenges in India's transition to achieving a low carbon economy, we know that the transition to achieve a low carbon economy is not just about reducing emission, it is about ensuring sustainable growth for future generation as well as for the current generation. So, India's journey has been commendable towards achieving low carbon economy, which is fulfilled also with challenges. So, what are the challenges in terms of achieving a low carbon economy? The main gap is with respect to technology and finance. So, this is limited, there are limited availability of advanced technologies, for example, green hydrogen and CCS, high capital requirements and financing constraints for clean energy projects. Coming to the second one, second challenge is the constraint as far as the land and resources availability. So, low per capita land availability among the G20 nations, now it became G21 when South Africa has been added. It competes, so in terms of land and resources constraints, we have to compete with agriculture, urbanization and other infrastructural needs in comparison to or in contrast to other countries who have lot of land or their per capita land availability is much higher than that of India. The third is it limits large scale renewable deployment. So, as far as energy demand versus climate goals are concerned, rapid economic growth, rising energy demand. The challenges is to meet the demand while reducing the emissions. And also India requires a careful balance between the development and decarbonization, because you cannot just go on decarbonizing at the cost of or by compromising the development, it is not possible. So, we need to, India needs to maintain a careful balance between deployment and development and decarbonization. Coming to India's advocacy for climate justice. So, India's advocacy for climate justice focuses on fairness, financial support and equitable policies to ensure that all nations can contribute to and benefit from climate action. So, India plays a crucial role in global climate negotiations, balancing its development needs with environmental responsibilities. So, the core principles, as we already have discussed, is CBDR, that means common but differentiated responsibility. We have a common responsibility, but also there is a difference maintained across the affordability as far as the affordability between developed and underdeveloped, developing and the small island nations are concerned. So, all must act, but the developed countries lead due to historical emissions, because the developed countries are historically the largest emitters. So, this should contribute, this should lead towards achieving the climate change objective. So, that will bring justice. The third is in terms of climate finance demand, strong push for fulfillment of 100 billion USD and essential for adaptation and mitigation as far as the developing nations are concerned. And equity in terms of climate policies. So, policies must reflect different capabilities and development needs. Climate action should support, not restrict the growth or not restricting the development. So, what we say that yes, there has to be a there need to be a difficult balance to be maintained between development and decarbonization, and also climate, then only the climate justice can be brought in. Coming to various renewable energy initiatives as far as India is concerned, India is making significant strides in renewable energy, aiming to become a global leader in this sector. The country has set ambitious target to increase its renewable energy capacity. International Solar Alliance, India launched the ISA, International Solar Alliance, to promote solar energy globally. This initiative aims to, the 3 points we mentioned here, it aims to facilitate solar energy deployment in tropical countries. So, all tropical countries, they receive, being close to the equator, receive maximum of the solar radiation. So, that is the advantage. It also fosters collaboration among the member countries. We have 196 countries who are the member of this UNFCCC and also signatories to the Paris Agreement. So, as far as International Solar Alliance concerned, there needs to be a collaboration among other developing countries in terms of technology transfer, and also the finance or the fund requirement is concerned. Then share best practices and the technologies. Coming to the third one, in terms of the green hydrogen development, India is also focusing on green hydrogen as a clean energy source. The government is investing in 3 ways importantly, in terms of R&D as far as hydrogen technology is concerned, infrastructure for hydrogen production and distribution, and also need to explore partnership with other nations to enhance the capability. So, R&D, infrastructure and partnership are the 3 key areas where India is actively actively investing, and in the sector of green hydrogen development. The third is scaling up. Scaling of wind and solar power. India is rapidly expanding its wind and solar power capacity. The current goal include achieving 500. All this we have already discussed several times in terms of Panchamrit, and increasing the solar power generation significantly with a target of 100 gigawatt. Developing offshore wind projects to harness the coastal wind. So, in terms of the solar power generation, moving on to renewable energy sector, and also from the wind India is doing actively well, very well as then coming to the India's updated NDC, nationally designated determined contribution. So, India's domestic climate policy and global impact turns around or revolves around our domestic policies, which accordingly significantly contribute to global climate goals, but scaling them requires overcoming technology, finance and resource constraints. National commitments in terms of INDC, Indian nationally determined contributions, or NDC, we say international or the national. So, as far as this is concerned, the target is reduction of 33 to 35% in terms of emission intensity by end of 2030 in comparison to 2005. So, this is the benchmark is with respect to 2005. India needs to reduce its emission by 30 to 35%, 33 to 35% till the year or by the year 2030 or end of this decade. Focus on growth with sustainability. Global impact of domestic actions as far as emission reduction is concerned, we have the target in terms of avoiding 440 metric tons of carbon dioxide between 2020 or 22 in terms of CO2 equivalent. Then coming 3,950 million tons of carbon dioxide, which has been projected to be reduced by the end of this decade. So, you see in this decadal period it is expected to be reduced. Coming in terms of renewable energy expansion, it supports global decarbonization and sustainable development policies well aligned with whatever the 17 sustainable development goals have been earmarked, have been prescribed. Then coming to the implementation challenges, technology gaps, limited availability and high cost, financing constraint, access to affordable capital, land limitations affecting renewable scale up. So, moving on to the next one is with respect to India's role in climate adaptation and resilience. So, community based adaptation strategies. So, investing in community based strategies is essential for rebuilding resilience against climate change impacts. We can see here various investments in climate resilient infrastructure as far as building flood defenses in vulnerable areas in terms of nature based solution, raising lot of mangroves, green grey infrastructure or some embankments or something else. And then upgrading the water supply system to handle the extreme weather event situation, because in terms of cyclone or lot of rain or means high or low kind of scenario, drought and excessive rain. So, here particularly with respect to excessive rain, we need to upgrade our water supply system and water drainage system. All these things need to be upgraded to what you say, to capable or make them capable of handling in terms of extreme weather events. Coming to enhancing the transportation network to withstand the climate impact. So, we need to what you say, enhance our transportation network so that we can withstand the climate impact. So, these are some of the efforts that are crucial for protecting communities and ensuring sustainable development. As far as the National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change is concerned, funding for agricultural adaptation projects is a must, and it involves support for research on climate impacts, and community training programs are also required to improve the local resilience. So, as far as the community based adaptation strategies are concerned, we need to promote the CSA, that means climate smart agriculture through local involvement. We need to engage the communities in terms of disaster preparedness training, and also encourage the local water management practices to enhance the resilience as far as means what you say, water deficient and sufficient condition, that means drought and flood conditions are concerned. So, these are all some of the strategies which has already been adopted by India in terms of the climate adaptation and resilience. Now, moving on to the various progresses in India's climate targets. So, India has made remarkable progress on its climate commitment under Paris Agreement 2015. So, we already have discussed in some other previous classes in terms of achieving one of its major target 5 years ahead of schedule and nearing completion on other two. So, India is moving very fast and achieving the targets before the target date. So, that it is a good thing or a good news, and also indication that how aggressively India is moving ahead with in terms of achieving the climate change targets. So, India has already achieved 50% of non-fossil capacity, that means 247.78 gigawatts of power in out of 484.82 by 2024. So, target met 5 years ahead of 2030 deadline. So, what a good news it is. In terms of carbon sink, the target is 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide sink, achieved 2.29 billion tons by 2021 and likely exceeded 2.5 billion tons by 2023. As far as the emission intensity is concerned, 45% reduction by 2030 versus 2005, has achieved 36% reduction by 2022 and on track to meet or exceed the target. Look at the major gaps as far as India's climate adaptation and mitigation strategies are concerned. So, first 4 are put here. The first is weak local implementation and coordination. So, we need to work there. Second is financial and technological constraints. So, there also India is pursuing many of the measures very aggressively. Third is slow decarbonization progress. Fourth is in terms of inequality and inclusivity gaps. So, this is also particularly vulnerable communities and are disproportionately affected. So, the communities who cannot afford are and also are more vulnerable to the impact of climate change. They are affected disproportionately. So, that is what is a big gap in terms of inequality and inclusivity of gaps are concerned. So, what concerns I am sorry. So, what concerns are associated with India's climate targets? So, capacity versus generation gap. As far as India is concerned, India achieved 50% of this, and moreover just approximately 6% of the total energy consumption is clean, as fossil fuels still dominate sectors like industry, transport and household. So, we need to work there and replace the fossil fuels as fast as possible. And then heavy reliance on solar energy. So, we need, as far as the renewable energy is concerned, heavy reliance is on solar energy. So, other sources also in terms of wind, hydro, nuclear and all this also we need to explore. So, India's nuclear capacity is expected to reach just 17 gigawatt by 2030 against 100 gigawatt target by 2047. So, we need to work and move fast there as far as the nuclear capacity or the energy coming from the nuclear sector. Look at the graphs as far as the projected shift in Indian power generation. So, renewable installations are set to grow rapidly while thermal power loses the market share. So, coal fired by financial year 2019 and 30 estimate and renewable in totality, and out of that you can see with respect to hydro, gas fuel, nuclear and the diesel fired. Whereas, as far as the other one is concerned in terms of generation and capacity, in terms of generation which is shown by blue sketch is seen that we are somewhere there is a gap between the capacity and the generation. So, in terms of the projected shift in India's power sector. Now, coming to the Paris Agreement crediting mechanism and India's participation is concerned. So, adoption of Article 6.4, that means a shift from CDM Clean Development Mechanism to a global carbon market. We have discussed this also in terms of our financial or the market discussion in the last week. So, we have discussed that global momentum 89 plus cooperation agreements, and then India's strategic move as far as joint crediting mechanism is concerned. It operationalizes Article 6.2, and in India means the position of India is good as far as a carbon leader in the global south and also a hub for climate finance and clean technology deployment. So, the significance of India's participation, it enables technology transfer and research and development, attracts climate finance and boosts economy, accelerates low carbon industrial transition. India's strategy and eligible activities as far as India's strategy and eligible activities are concerned, 13 priority activities aligned with development plus climate goals. Focus is on renewable green hydrogen, sustainable aviation fuel, expansion into offshore wind and large scale energy storage, deep carbonization of steel and cement using the CCS technology. So, scale what is required as far as India's participation is needed in terms of Paris Agreement crediting mechanism. scale clean energy, diversify the systems, decarbonize heavy industries. So, let us move on to the NAPAC in terms of National Action Plan on Climate Change. This was launched in 2008 by the Prime Minister Council on Climate Change. It aims at creating awareness among the representatives of the public, different agencies of the government, scientists and industry and the communities on who are on threat or different dangers or at the vulnerable lineup. There are 8 national missions forming the core of the NAPAC. So, those have been mentioned here in terms of National Solar Mission, Mission on Enhanced Energy Efficiency, Mission for Sustainable Habitat, Water Mission, we have Mission for Sustainable Himalayan Ecosystem, Mission on Green India, GIM, we have Missions for Sustainable Agriculture and Strategic Knowledge on Climate Change. So, these 8 national missions forms the core of the NAPAC, which represent multi-pronged, long-term and integrated strategies for achieving key goals in terms of climate change. So, the guiding principle of our policy or of our plan, it integrates equity, technology, policy and global cooperation for climate resilient development. So, inclusive and climate sensitive development includes protecting the poor and the vulnerable category or the section of the people. It also ensures sustainable and equitable growth. So, deployment of appropriate technologies for both adaptation and mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions extensively and at an accelerated pace. So, what are the regulatory and voluntary mechanisms we have under NAPAC? Is to promote the sustainable development and engineering new and innovative forms as far as the market is concerned. We also follow a kind of decentralized implementation. We strengthen the public-private partnership, civil society and local governance linkage and also improve on-ground execution. As far as the international cooperation is concerned, we need to promote the R&D, technology transfer and data sharing, which are also supported by finance and global IPR framework, the intellectual property right frameworks as mentioned are spelled out in UNFCCC. So, to prepare them, we have taken the help of these references from various sources, notable sources. So, to conclude, we understood that India has already emerged as an active player in this climate governance and execution sector. So, India has emerged as a key global climate actor, demonstrating measurable progress in renewable expansion, emission intensity reduction and carbon sink enhancement. Its approach, so India's approach has been uniquely defined in terms of balancing the development priorities with climate responsibility, which is also guided by principle of equity and CBDR. However, the transition is constrained by structural challenges including financial gaps, technological limitations, uneven energy mix and sectoral fuel dependence. The gap between the installed capacity and the actual clean energy utilization remains a critical concern. So, here we need to really India need to really act and think and act. So, to go forward in order to achieve sustainable low carbon pathway, this will depend how actively we scale the technology and infrastructure, how actively we mobilize large scale climate finance, how actively we strengthen or India strengthens its policy coherence and implementation and also enhances the global cooperation and carbon market participation. So, friends, in this week 11th week we discussed about the global climate governance framework. So, we started in the lecture 1 of this week, that means the 51st lecture. We discussed about UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is the broad umbrella body. In the second lecture, that means the 52nd lecture, we discussed about the Kyoto Protocol, which was discussed in 1997 and then subsequently came under implementation. The third lecture, that means the 53rd lecture, we discussed about the Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement is an important agreement that targets the what you say, restricting the temperature rise to 1.5 or 2 degrees centigrade and try to achieve it, try to do 1.5 degree temperature rise restriction. And the fourth lecture, that means the 54th lecture, we discussed about the Glasgow Pact, where lot of what you say NDC and what you say, the framework as far as how much which country or the nationally determined contribution have come up with their own targets in order to achieve net zero. And this class, the 5th class, we specifically pulled on all the progresses, all the achievements, all the targets, the frameworks in terms of justice, renewable energy resources, in terms of finance. We discussed about our country India, and we found that it has already emerged as a key global actor in this in the sector as far as climate governance is concerned, including technology, including finance, including adaptation and mitigation. Thank you very much for attending to this lecture and for this week's discussion on global what you say, global finance or global carbon governance. Thank you very much.